skilled, trained actors, actresses, grips. I mean, the whole thing. So they do a lot of.
Write it down.
Yeah.
Literally like FEW?
We FEW.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look into it.
And what, so it's a Facebook group, but they'll post things like upcoming shoots and things that are going. So if you wanted to do more in that work.
Yeah. I've worked with a lot of them over the years for commercial shoots and everything from,
Okay, quiet on set.
All right, it is 3 o'clock. It's Friday afternoon. Welcome everybody. We are live on Facebook. Hopefully you guys out there in Facebook land are joining us. And we are excited to welcome Anna. We'll introduce you in a minute. But I think we've got a few events coming up that we wanted to highlight before we get started. And so we'll go around the table and talk about that in just a second. But first I want to make sure that we highlight and thank Action Business Furniture. We are sitting in their showroom and such a great partner. We love working with them. And if you have any office furniture needs, come on down. Corner of Park and Sprague, which lends me to the ever-present invitation. If you are not doing anything at 3 o'clock on a Friday, come join us for the live. It's a good time. And that's a natural segue. We want to thank Nick Santilli of Guardian Mortgage, brought the food and desserts.
Yay,
and,
Nick.
Yeah, there's a nice spread down here. So if you're feeling a little peckish on a Friday, we will sometimes feed you.
Sometimes.
And thank you to everybody that's here at the table. It's not a conversation without people. So appreciate you guys coming down. And everybody there on Facebook, we're looking for your input and participation. So write a comment, weigh in on whatever's going on in your life, and we will try to give you a shout out as we go along. So we want to talk about events coming up, and I'm going to start. Did you have any events worth?
Mine's still under construction, if you will.
Yes.
So.
Okay. So mastermind thing where it's in the works. Look for that announcement coming very soon. Rob?
Well, I'm just going to point out that our friends over at Art Connect, it's actually a couple of weeks out.
Yeah.
Actually, well, no, actually, I think the one next week coming out is Jeremy Neffen is doing his Danjo networking event at Danjo in Southville. And Jeremy's always great for getting groups together to share information and things. So Tuesday, 10 to
noon is, I think is the timing on that. And if I'm ever able to, I'm always at that. It's such a great small environment, but like really good conversations around there.
So shout out to Jeremy and the Art Connect crew for their contribution to small businesses.
And then the other Art Connect deal is the 18th from 10 to 1 out at Burbity. And that's a big workshop. So that, you got to sign up for that in advance, make sure.
Right. That's going to be at the Cara Hooper, and they're working on your professional.
Good stuff.
Good
stuff. All right. Laura, you have something coming up in March.
Yes.
So let's hear a little
5
bit
weeks
about that.
out, you guys. I am going to be doing a live intensive training. It is a ticketed event, March 11th through the 14th. Early registration at 9:30 a.m. at the door to let me know that you're a live body and sitting in a seat. And after that, every other day, you're going to show up at 10 a.m. till 3. Lunch will be served. Boards by Brit is going to be serving us amazing food. If anybody doesn't know who she is, she's in the Valley. Can't remember the address, but just look it up. But anyway, she's always looking for business, and she is a great resource for events like this. So it's going to be held out at the Mode campus in Liberty Lake, March 11th through the 14th. You don't want to miss out, and there's only 30 seats available.
Excellent. All right. Dave, you've got something tomorrow.
Yes, I have a stand-up mastery workshop once again, and it's going to be at 10:45 start time at Shadle Library.
Awesome.
Room for about 20. I don't know how many people are going to be coming.
Yeah.
But I will let you in if it's 21. Not a problem. But we're going to be just talking about, some really cool stuff that people can take away right away.
Yeah.
And then we'll also present the stand-up mastery program to see who's ready to really get it going. And we focus on communication, connection, and collaboration skills. And it's a lot of fun. And it's for all of those folks who just never got that kind of training.
Yeah.
And it's a few weeks into that, and you start seeing the noticeable differences in how their confidence rises and how they start to not be afraid to get out there and mix it up and go for those raises and those, advancements and opportunities that just seem to show up after a while.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. It's tomorrow at Shadle, 10:45.
Awesome. All right. Did you have something coming up?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, so let's just jump into it. I am super excited to introduce Anna Rose.
Yep.
And Anna, you're gonna have to talk just a little bit to the camera so that you're in frame because nobody can see you just yet.
I will do it.
There she is. All right, there she is. Anna, welcome to the show. So Anna and I connected, Caleb Stapp, friend of the show, connected us, and just by way of introduction, and I kind of almost feel like I need to put a warning on this episode before we start. This might get emotional. Like there is some depth to this topic, and I'm super excited to dive into it. And so I'm not going to actually put a warning on it because it's going to be a good conversation. But I'm super impressed when we had our first phone conversation. You know, a lot of times when you have a conversation with somebody, you slowly get into the waters with it. We just jumped right in, and I love that about you, and I'm excited to bring that energy to this conversation. So there's a ton that I could say about your career and all of that, but I know we'll get into that as we go. But this isn't something like you just kind of mess around with this. This isn't a hobby. This is like, you do this for real.
Yeah.
I think was Robert Day was mentioning that like you were in Forbes.
Yeah.
So like, this isn't like, just like a hobby. So
Yeah.
anyway, super excited to have you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I had someone ask me one time, they're like, so you're a makeup artist like on YouTube? And I said, no, like a real one. I don't just sit there and paint my own face for likes and hearts and comments. I paint other people's face for their heart. And I started makeup artistry about 6 years ago. And it started for me as a quest for mental health. I dealt with really extreme health issues for about 5 years. My husband and I have been married for about 13, and I started having some issues shortly after we were married. After we had our 2 kiddos, health issues really ramped up, and we ended up having to move in with my mother-in-law at one point. I had been to, over the course of 5 years, 16 doctors, 8 surgeries, several months in the hospital, 1 round of sepsis, 3 times near death, 2 years of home health, 5 PICC lines, 10 midlines, and a portacath, and a whole lot of trauma. And I now have a permanent colostomy bag, which I live with, and it has saved my life in the best way and given me my life back.
Terrific.
Thank you. But I remember laying in bed one day, just struggling with severe depression, and I had been in the health and fitness industry for years, and that's how I found my confidence and kind of found who I was. And so when I looked in the mirror, that's kind of where I gathered some of my value. And when I didn't have that, it really took a toll on me because I felt like I was looking at a different person in the mirror. And we were living with my mother-in-law at the time, and she had received like a subscription sample bag of some makeup. And I thought, well, that's really fun. And I remember just in tears, just bawling. And my husband was like, honey, you need a purpose, you need a passion. And I've always been very driven, like if we get an idea, let's do it. And there was no stopping me. So when I had all these health issues, it was the thing that was holding me back. And I really needed something to give me some purpose to wake up. And so he was the one that he likes to take credit for my makeup career and say, I was the one who suggested that. But I started just kind of playing with makeup, and I remember looking in the mirror, and even though my first looks weren't great, I thought, I did that. I feel a little bit better. And it's kind of like during COVID when we were all in our jammies and didn't leave our houses for weeks, you finally put on jeans and do your hair or, put on a nice shirt and you think, okay, she's back. And so that's kind of the feeling I got when I would look in the mirror and just be like, okay, all right, she's here. She has a little bit of purpose. She's standing a little bit taller. And I remember struggling with self-image and just being like, okay, Lord, you made me in your image, help me to see myself that way, because I don't see myself that way. And it really hit me hard that when I put myself down, since I am made in the image of Christ, I'm essentially putting him down. And so I thought, how can I see myself in his image? And makeup for me was the gateway that finally opened that door. So since then, I've been in business for about 6 years. I've done over 200 weddings, done makeup for about 1,000 people. I was in Forbes, which is really cool. Definitely have those high ranking things, but ultimately it's not what I've done, it's who I've helped. And that's been the driving focus behind everything that I do.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, way to just condense 6 years into
Yeah.
and more than that, because
Yeah.
the whole, so
Yeah.
there are so many threads in there that I want to pull on, but I kind of want to throw this out to the group, and we haven't even really introduced ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe a good way to do it is, as you introduce the next question or thought into it, go ahead and identify who you are, what you do, and then, if it's a question for Anna or a thought that triggered for you, that might keep the conversation moving along, we'll go that way. So I'll start that off while you guys process. I'm Jonathan Byron. I am host of this show and a real estate agent here in Spokane, Washington. My goal this year is to help 100 people buy a house. So if you know anybody that's throwing money away on rent, I would love to have a conversation with them about how much easier it is to get into homeownership than they think. And like I said, we could have a conversation. I want to let this be a group conversation. So what's the takeaways that we're getting? What are you guys, where are we at?
Well, first of all, Stephen Dusek with Dusek Drafting and Design, and now Protograve, rapid prototyping and laser engraving. First of all, I would like to say, wow, you have an amazing testimony, a wonderful story.
Thank you.
And you should be extremely proud of yourself with what you've done.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really all I wanted to say.
That's okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I'm going to chime in. I am Laura Dusek. I am a life coach. I am a certified master life coach, and my wheels are turning with what we just said. I mean, laying in bed and feeling down and depressed and trying to figure out where you are in life, and being in God's image, and having your faith kind of keep you going and driven, because you have a crown on your head. You just have to figure out how to tip it up and get it upright. And so I mean, living with a colostomy bag and just owning that and just having it be part of who you are, and taking the reins and going, I'm going to make this a profession. I'm not just going to go to certain parties and tell everybody what you do. You took it to the next level, and I think that's so cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Dave Ribble with Stand Up Mastery. The thing I asked you before we went on the air, I'm going to revisit it.
That's okay.
I asked her about if she's ever had to work with bridezillas, and you have stories.
I do have some stories. I'm trying to remember which ones we had talked about. Fortunately, I have had incredible brides.
Well, you had somebody that put on some purple lipstick.
Yes,
What happened with that?
I had done her whole face of makeup, and then she went rogue and decided she wanted to change her lip color. So those, just things like that have happened where they disappear and they come back, and you're like, I don't remember that that being there. But fortunately, for the most part, out of all my brides, I've only had a couple people ever do that, and it was mainly in the beginning where I was just taking any client that would say yes. But now, fortunately, I attract a different caliber of client, and they have not done that for a couple
Well,
years.
you're doing the makeup, somebody else is doing the coordinating for the wedding typically.
Most of the time, yes.
And so those are the ones who are running from the building. You're relatively safe on that.
Yes, I am.
Okay. I think your story is amazing.
Thank you.
I think you're incredibly talented, and
Thank you.
stuff you're dealing with, we can all lean in on and benefit from your story. We really appreciate you coming and sharing that information with us.
I'm happy to. Thank you.
Well, that leads to a question. I was looking for the business angle here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Rob Bruder with IDIC Designs, Infinite Diversity and Infinite Combinations, and I work with business owners who are looking to increase their technology game to benefit their bottom line. But you talked about just a moment ago, you said early on, the bridezilla, those that, and now you've gotten to a point in which you have a better class
Yeah.
of client.
Yeah.
What is that journey like? I mean, you work in an industry that is, it's all perception. It's what people say, oh, that looks good and things.
Yes.
So how do you transition from helping people that you want to help and you identify this is not a good fit for me. This one I can work with.
Yeah.
Great question.
Value is perceived. And so in the very beginning of my career, I felt like I knew that I wanted to help people, but I wasn't quite sure on my ideal client. Now, after quite a few years of, having business mentors, and usually during every slow season, kind of in the late fall, winter, I'll usually take a business class or something like that. So you learn to hone in who you're talking to and your why and what you offer. So I've gotten pretty good about narrowing that down. And then also prices and just cost of things will also draw in a certain caliber of client because they're looking for a certain value. And so if something is priced too low, they're going to go, wait a second, her work is really good, but what's wrong? If it's priced way too high, then you're out of your market. And so the goal is to find that medium package price, pack it with value for their client so it becomes a no-brainer yes, and give them exactly what they need. So oftentimes when clients reach out to me, I have a questionnaire, but I want to ultimately know what is it that you're looking for on your wedding day and what would make this an easy yes, and how can I elevate my services. So a while ago, I started making touch-up services like a non-negotiable part of my bridal packages, because I was getting these galleries back from photographers, and I would say, well, the bride is sweaty in her photos because it's in the summer, or she's got hair stuck to her lip. A lot of times they wouldn't have any lip color because after kissy photo number 5, like it's gone. And so I follow my brides around usually until their ceremony with my Mary Poppins bag full of everything, straws, deodorant wipe, does anybody have scissors, like Tylenol, all those things, fans, because when they're super hot and it's 100 degrees, like you need that. So I want to ensure that, hey, you invest in your photos and your wedding day, let's make sure you look good in those photos. So just structuring my packages, my website, and the things I offer my clients naturally draw on a certain clientele, and then the price kind of naturally weeds out the rest. Did that answer your question?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, you're going to be front and center in my marketing class on
There you go.
Tuesday, because we're going to be talking about how do you build your offer.
Yeah.
And I love what you talked about there, of realizing that you have a package and then you realize there was a missing component. So now you say, you don't get this without this element.
Yes.
And it's great that she's adding value. That's the whole key around the whole thing.
Right.
The more value you bring, the less competition you have.
Yeah.
So good for you.
Thank you.
I think it's a great lesson. I mean, all of us have that question running around in our head, and we're all trying to figure out that secret recipe.
Yeah.
And the question gets asked, and almost rudely so, well, what are your prices? How do you price this? That depends on you.
Yeah.
It really does depend on what you're offering and what your clientele, somebody gave me this word a couple of weeks ago, what your avatar is.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that meant until I started really listening.
Yeah.
And so that's really cool that you were
Thank you.
able to say, I'm worth this.
Yeah. Well, and I've experimented over the years of some people in the bridal industry swear by having prices on their website and being really transparent. And I noticed though that more in the luxury community don't have their prices.
Right.
Like that's just kind of how it is. And so when I have had things on my prices on my website, my inquiries have just tanked because they don't get the value of you.
Yeah.
Because when they reach out and they inquire, and then 5 minutes later I send them a text, and then I ask them about their wedding day, and I'm just pouring into them, they're like, okay, this girl knows her stuff. And so you want to be their first yes, and I don't want to give them a reason to say no, because they say, oh my gosh, that package is $1,300 for just makeup. No, you're getting so much more. Yeah.
But you have that opportunity to
Yes.
give them that information and that value.
Yep.
It's not, I'm not picking on Yardbirds. I don't know if Yardbird even exists anymore, but it's Yardbirds or it's Frederick and Nelson's. Who do you want to shop with?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
And
great.
I always tell people you can go to Target for a purse, or you can go to Gucci. You're gonna get a different experience, and I want to be Gucci. Right? Yeah.
Got it.
Let's put Cherie on the spot.
All right.
We haven't done that yet.
Yes, let's.
Batter up.
Well, I'm Cherie Sauer. I own Success Without Sacrifice. I'm a life and business coach. I specialize in burnout and really helping businesses to scale without burnout. I missed the beginning of your story, and I came in and I was like, oh, I want to know what happened. So I missed the first part of it, but what I loved and what I heard was there was some self-image issues because of some health issues, and I missed the beginning part of it, but that's kind of what I came into. And I think whether you have a health issue or don't, self-image is always an issue, especially for women, for girls. And when you have that, that's a big piece of who you are, and then all of a sudden that's taken away by health or injury or something like that, then you have to kind of rediscover who you are and coming back to that. So I just love that you kind of turned your pain into purpose, and now you are helping other people. And I think sometimes with makeup or clothes, there can be this, I don't know what the word is, it can seem superficial, but people who are makeup artists who really love helping women to feel confident, it's not just about putting makeup on you, it's about creating a transformation and helping you really feel confident. So really cool.
Thank you.
I love what you do, and I just love how you said, I want to be the Gucci. And you're really clear on who you serve and how you show up, and so that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Confidence is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know that I have any specific questions necessarily. but
You're okay.
No, it's great.
I loved.
I have another
Loved
question.
hearing what you had to
Do you also work with the groom and
We
the?
do. Yeah.
It's not just for the ladies.
Yeah, I'll do male grooming, and I always tell the bride, like, you're looking like 5 stars, and then he's standing there like, and sometimes he needs some help. And so I had a wedding a couple weeks ago where the groom had just excessively flaky skin, and I went in there and I said, I am here on behalf of the bride, and she gave me permission to do whatever you need, whatever I feel you need. So hold still. This is not gonna hurt, it's gonna be okay. So just with process of skincare, etc. And then he had like all this dried skin stuck in his glasses. I said, can I clean your glasses for you? And he goes, I just did. I said, give them to me. And the bride will thank you. So we want to make sure that he looks really good too.
Guys are kind of like that.
Yeah.
I bet he felt like a dog going to the vet.
Yeah. He just was kind of like, oh, okay. And then the groomsmen stood and laughed. And that's usually what happens. Yeah. That's usually the vibe with them.
That's when you say, no, you don't understand, you're next.
Yeah. Well, the running joke is usually the father of the bride will come in the makeup room at some point and say, am I next? And we all just fake laugh because we hear it
So much.
all the time. Yeah.
So you focus on the makeup and all of that. Do you work with with like a beautician to get their hair done properly and all that as well?
Yeah, so I will work pretty consistently with different hairstylists, and something that I offer that not a lot of makeup artists do is I'll do like hair liaison services or other beauty liaison services, so that way they can book their full beauty package through me, and I'll source the hairstylist and other people, so they're not having to hire multiple vendors. Yeah.
Good.
One-stop shop.
Yep.
So that would suggest too that you're tied in with different bridal shops and different places.
Sometimes, yeah, there's kind of a hierarchy when it comes to bridal and the like the stage in which things are purchased or found. Bridal shops are kind of that first stop, and makeup and hair is farther down the list. So it kind of is almost like the Jacob's ladder, where it's like, okay, you're gonna do your dress, and then it may be a photographer. So the dress shop may refer the photographer, then the photographer is gonna refer somebody else. And so I'm farther down on that cog. So I get referred by hairstylists and photographers quite often.
Those are all referral partners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been in Spokane the whole time?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you two meet?
How did I meet John?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go
Yeah,
for it.
so Caleb, that was our first official guest as a guest presenter, connected us.
Yeah.
And like I kind of introduced it when we were introduced. We had this conversation on the phone, and it was like, you know, hey, if you have a quick minute, I'll just give you a little rundown.
Mhm.
And we just went deep. It was like 30 minutes of like more of this. It was so good. And so that's a great segue. I think one of the threads that I'd love to pull on is this is very big. So I'll just kind of maybe tease the idea, and then we'll all kind of talk about it. Is one is our perception of ourselves and other people's perception of ourselves. And like I wore this shirt today. Lately I've been wearing a lot of flannel, and you know, and yesterday Dave and I were at an event, and
GQ all the way.
I had to pull out
You
because
showed up and I go, who are you? What have you done with Jonathan?
oh, I didn't know what to expect. And that's another one that we could even potentially like total bunny trail, but like when you get an invite to a wedding, right, and they don't specify what the dress code is, like it never fails. I'm the guy in the suit, everyone else is in flip-flops and t-shirts, or I'm the guy in flip-flops and everyone's in suits. I'm like, I just can't catch a break on this. But so if you're planning a wedding, like let your guests know what you would like to have. But there's so much to this, like how I perceive myself, how I show up, and the difference between even just wearing flannel and a dress shirt. For the women, no makeup, a little bit of makeup, full on, like we're going into a photo shoot, and it's got to be perfect. And it can be easy to get lost in that space.
Yes.
And a quote that I read quite a while ago, Greatest Salesman in the World, Og Mandino. If you haven't read that book, invest 10 months into that book. It's it's well worth the effort. But one of the lines that he has in there is, if you're feeling, and I don't remember exactly his language, but poor, run down, change your clothes. Like literally put on new clothes. And I think there's something about it. I've been doing cold plunges, and I did a video of me breaking the ice off of my cold plunge, and I was in my sweats. And my son held the camera, and I did it, and I looked at it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I looked awful. And I told my wife, she's like, yeah. I was like, oh, you liked this look. So like, and this is the question, right? How do you embrace that tension? How do you find that balance of like, you look at yourself in the mirror and you see you, right? And how do you cut through whatever the rest of it is, whether it's what am I wearing, what does my body look like, what does my face look like, is my hair right? I'm growing my hair a little bit longer, and I just used to have the little short spiky thing, a little bit of product and done. Now it's like I'm just constantly.
Gotta curl the front.
But I do have like the Conan O'Brien, like I love it. I was like, he's my hero. I just get that thing going on. So I don't know. I know that's a lot, but like maybe speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, when I do bridal makeup trials, so when they come before their wedding to kind of preview their makeup look, we talk a lot about, you know, what does your dress look like? What is the aesthetics of the wedding day? But then I always ask, like, what are a couple key words that would describe your look and in how you want to feel? Do you want to feel, I've heard from brides that are like, I want to feel sexy. I want to feel like a goddess. I want to feel beautiful. I want to feel like a threat. You know, I want to feel, they're just like, I want to, yeah. And so you can kind of tell by their body language how they want to feel. And I always tell them, okay, we've spent 2 hours creating this look and you're going to go home today. And at some point you're going to go in the bathroom, you're going to get up and you're going to forget you have that on. When you look in the mirror, is it, oh, or is it, like, that's when you know if it's the right look. And so ultimately with confidence, like, what is it going to take for you to be that, when you surprise yourself in the mirror, to that positive, shoulders back, standing a little bit higher. So I know for me, it's like exercise. If I'm not exercising, it's a bad day. You know, just being with my kids, feeling like a good mom. But then I know, like you, we talked last week, when it's like a goal, how do you backtrack that for yourself? And so I think it's a little bit different for everybody.
Well, I don't know about Steve, but I know that when he was dressing for our wedding, we went out and got him a really expensive tux.
Yeah.
But it was a James Bond tux, and I was like, I want him in that. And when he put it on, shoulders went back, and he, you know, fixes his watch, and he presented himself differently.
Yes.
We do this unconsciously, but it takes effort, it takes practice, it takes sometimes a professional to say, let's go shopping.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or that yes to the dress
Yes.
mentality.
Yeah.
It's yes to the makeup, yes to the new hairstyle, you know, and so you have to, sometimes you have to ask a question. Am I in the twilight zone or am I current?
Yeah.
Because we can tend to get stuck in the, let's say, 60s, 80s,
Yeah.
you know, the flare jeans, they will come back around, trust me. But
don't throw them away.
yeah. But, you know, where are you right now, and where are you in the business platform? Are you dressed for success? Do you show up the way that you want to be treated? And so makeup plays a part in that.
Yes.
And the key thing you said, that my wife has said many, many times, is it's all about how do you want to feel?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah. Exactly.
I can definitely see how a lot of people could need help like that. 'Cause like me personally, someone says I need to go shopping for clothes, I'm going right to Costco. I don't know how to, you know, I know how to dress myself, but like for fashion, I couldn't. I take my daughter, she's 13.
Yeah.
I was like, we're gonna go shopping for me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what to buy for myself.
Well,
That's what I have her for.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Melissa helps me greatly in that department.
It's not always fashion. It's what do you feel comfortable in? Like my husband has like 4 pairs of Carhartt pants that are all different colors, and he grabs one of those off the shelf and then grabs a flannel. That's kind of his uniform that he's created for himself, where he says, you know, functionally this works well for me. I feel good in it, and he's out the door. And that can be different for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think when we were talking about how do you present yourself to to be valuable to your clients, if your client is expecting Gucci, and you come in with Target,
Yes.
you know, it's a mismet expectation, and so there is it's incumbent on us to dress the part. Dave, you're always talking about with standout mastery, like you gotta, how are you gonna show up?
Yeah.
And so it is a question of, and it's interesting, the other thought that I had as you were sharing that is how I perceive myself when I walk into that conversation.
Yes.
And so if I'm wearing, like last night, I had a suit on, like I walk into that room, I feel like a different person, even if I've forgotten that I'm wearing the suit. It just like seeing myself in the mirror before I left. You know, all the different things that come, you unbutton the suit button, you do like whatever those things are, you catch sight of yourself in the mirror, in the bathroom, and you're like, oh yeah. Your posture changes, your body language, you know, so it's an interesting, I don't know, catch-22, but it spirals either direction.
We've talked about it in Mastery too, that if you pay attention to the little things like that, one of the chapters in my book is shine your shoes.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean really to just, spend 30 minutes shining your shoes. You should
Right.
probably do that. But it was a mindset. When you start to get your shoes all shined up and you're putting the suit on and you're doing all these things, you're also setting this thing up.
Yep.
Huge.
Yeah. I don't even get on a regular phone call with a bride without putting on a blazer, put on the jeans, put on the belt. I put on the shoes even when I'm in my house
Yeah.
because it makes me sit a little bit differently. My voice carries differently. It's huge.
So, obviously presentation
Yeah.
is key. So you're probably not gonna show up with like CoverGirl makeup and, or
Yeah.
Avon.
Right.
You're gonna be coming in with the high-end stuff, the good stuff, the stuff that's not gonna cake up on her face.
Right.
And all of that. So, all right, I think I agree that in any scenario, presentation is key. I mean, I'm working on doing a presentation for my first laser engraving client. Well, she has a product of cutting boards. So what I did was I laser engraved and laser cut out the shape of a cutting board with her logo on it that she was nice enough to send over just as the presentation. So I don't know, it's you got to think about the details when it comes to the presentation. You can't walk in and have stuff that you picked up at Dollar Tree
Yeah.
as your
As your token.
Yeah.
as your token,
Yeah.
or you want every aspect of what you're presenting to be, okay, you're looking at this level, well, I'm going to bring you this level.
Yeah.
And so that somebody, the perceived value jumps when they see that you're using top quality product. You're presenting yourself as top quality. And it just helps along the way. It's kind of like in the cabinet industry, the drawings are the first thing that the client sees.
Yeah.
If your drawings aren't top notch, well, that client is going to be asking a lot more questions and a lot more possible. Well, they're going to dive deeper into the final submittal drawings than if they than they would if the drawings were like, oh, this is exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
It drives a conversation, I'm sorry.
Oh,
It drives that conversation. It leads your client into the next step.
Yeah.
And it makes your life easier.
Yeah. Yep.
I was actually just gonna say the quality of makeup and for the quality of service. I actually had my makeup done for getting on a stage.
Oh yeah.
And it was cheap makeup.
Yeah.
It was like elf makeup,
Yeah.
like super cheap.
Yeah.
And after about an hour, maybe 2 hours, it was super obvious. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, I would not hire her to be my makeup artist. Like I
Right.
wouldn't hire her because of the quality of makeup. And
Right.
part of it is like quantity, and they go through a lot of it. And it's, but I was like, this looks terrible on my
Yeah.
skin.
Yeah.
And it did. It was awful after about 2 hours. I mean, I wasn't on stage for that long,
Yeah.
thankfully, but
You were under the lights too, weren't you?
lights,
Yeah.
and it is, so it just brought out like all the flaws in my skin
Yeah.
because that's what cheap makeup does. And so it's all about that like perceived value. And I think, when we're talking about business or products, you can't be cheap and offer something cheap if you want to be
Right.
luxury.
Yeah.
You've got to pay to present yourself as luxury if you
Yeah.
want to charge
And
luxury.
that's something else you have to know too, is
Yeah.
whether or not they're gonna be under.
Oh yeah, we're
Heavy
taking
license.
into account all sorts of things. Yeah, it's funny that you mention as far as what you carry in your kit, because there are some things that are drugstore things like lipsticks that are cult favorites amongst the makeup community. And then there's also some of those things that a lot of people have seen on TikTok or social media that they also want to see in your kit. And that also entertains that perceived value thing where they're like, oh, this product is really popular right now. Maybe I should put a little bit of that in there. Maybe they should be able to see that.
Keeping up with trends.
Keeping up with trends and kind of having a finger on a pulse. They like to see that.
Interesting. Yeah, that is interesting.
So so basically speaking, your clientele, they want to feel like fine porcelain, not
Yes.
plaster of Paris.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's good.
Good analogy.
I want to pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'll frame the question for everybody, and then I'll give you a little bit of time to think about it as I kind of give an example for me personally. So, and this is where I'm gonna go a little bit deep on the personal side, and so if anybody's uncomfortable, like this is not obligatory, but if you're willing to go back to that space where you just felt unseen, unloved, unworthy, what were some things that other people did, your husband, and the question is this, if I see somebody, if my wife is struggling with that, if a close friend is going through something, and I can tell that they're struggling, and I can also tell that they don't want to talk about it, or they're like, no, I'm fine, that kind of like arm's length that we all do when we're in that space. What are the things that people that want to reach out to somebody that's in a dark place, how can they bridge that gap? What are the things that are meaningful? And so as you guys all process that, because I gave myself a head start, knew I was going to ask the question. So my dad passed recently, it was about this time last year, and prior to that, he had a really rough spell that we thought was the end. And at the time, there was a construction crew working on the road in front of our house, and we'd gotten to know the guys really well. And so Chad is the name of the guy, I'll shout him out. Amazing guy. He and I built this relationship. And I had just gotten home, and my wife had just told him about the news that I had just received, that my dad was in a rough space and might not be pulling through. And I'll never forget this, because for me, it changed the way that I interact with people that have just received bad news. He didn't say a word to me. He just made eye contact with me, and he gave me that look, and it's a guy look, and it's a man-to-man kind of thing, but it was the look that said all the things but not trite. There was no, hey pal, sorry to hear it. And it's one of those things, it's like when words fail, and you can just so for me, that was so meaningful. Of all of the interactions I had when people heard that my dad was going through something, that one to this day, like I can feel that like emotional energy of somebody being like, I care about you, I'm here for you, and I'm not gonna be stupid enough to use words right now. I see you. And it was just earth shattering for me. And so now I try to show up for people that way. So that's an example for me, but like maybe you guys can share times that you've either been able to connect with somebody in a meaningful way, or somebody connected with you in a meaningful way when you were in a space like that.
Well, I can tell you that we lost our family pet a couple days ago, and John, instead of saying condolences for your loss, it was I'm so sorry, and I'm so glad that I got to meet her and get to know her, and that was huge. It wasn't this I don't know what to say. It was I genuinely care about your loss, and it was nice to hear. It was just an extra push that it was genuinely nice. So it's hard, it's difficult, because it's like you don't want to watch somebody kiss. Everybody will look away when somebody kisses. I mean, it's a natural reaction just to look away. To me, I'll just say it, really put myself out here, but I like the genuine passion that couples have, because it's like, wow, it does exist. Steve and I met a couple in Costco a couple years ago, and they were just all over each other. I mean, just not to the point where they were in a room, but we asked them, we said, how long have you guys been married? And they got giggly. They said, 3 days.
Wow.
And they were in their 80s.
Oh.
It was just so cool. And so you have to look for those moments. You
Yeah.
have to just, well, like Dave talks about in his stand-up mastery, is to be genuine, to actually be a human being to the person next to you. Not that they're not just a number, they're not a cash register, they're a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do that, and if we respond more, and we've all been trained in the last 20 years to have a different mentality.
Mhm.
And I think we've gotten away from those times where life was simpler,
Mhm.
but it's more meaningful. And so when John did that, it was like, yes, we didn't have to say anything more, but it was enough that I was like, oh, it's not just this pat answer.
Mhm.
So that was nice.
Well, I suppose I've got to speak into this. For me, one of the things is about the empathy, the connection, and how quickly it can be developed. So on January 27th, I had a heart attack.
Oh.
And I'd gone into ER the night before, and they had identified the potential that I had a heart issue that needed to be looked at. So they transferred me into the cardiac unit so they could do testing the next day. And I went into the unit about 10 o'clock at night, and the heart attack happened just after midnight. And in that 2-hour period of time, I had connected with the nurse that was, she was the assigned night nurse for me and so on. But the beauty of it was that we connected very quickly in that time period. And out of that, going through the experience, and she is there doing everything she can to fight for me on the one hand as a nurse, and on the other hand, stopping every so often and just saying, "I'm so sorry, Rob. I'm so sorry you have to go through this. I'm just so sorry." And it was that, and even after that, I got the privilege of having her 2 nights and things, and it was that emotional connection that mattered to me the most. So that's the important thing, is that empathy and that connection can be so genuine so quickly if we're just open to not the job we have to do, but the person who's there and going through the experience.
I believe it's how we're wired. I think everybody's an empath to begin. It goes off the rails at some point later on, but I think we're all empaths, and it doesn't take much to get there, and it doesn't take much to appreciate it and notice it and acknowledge it. How old were they?
In their 80s.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
It was just so cool. I mean, Steve and I were just like grinning from ear to ear, like, oh, I want to be you. So
That's so great.
Well, there was that other couple that we met at the at a buffet. They had been married for 75 years,
Wow. Whoa. Wow.
and that's not even the best part of their story. They met when she was 8 and he was 12, and they've been together ever since.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. It was the Notebook in real life. You could literally reach out and touch them.
Wow.
It was so cool.
You could see every time she looked over at him, there was still immense love in her eyes. It was just like, it was so heartwarming to see that after all this time, they were still madly in love with each other. So,
I was gonna say, I'm curious to hear your answer in this of what helped you through.
Yeah, I don't want to push, but I'd love to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're,
Yeah, I think there are a few things. I know what didn't help us. I was so tired of hearing how are you feeling for years, and that being the only basis of conversation. Because I would see people and how are you feeling, and it was constant talk about my health issues. And so for me, when someone engaged in different conversation about maybe an interest or something that's going on in their lives, it just felt refreshing. But then it was also equally as refreshing to have people listen that I knew were genuine. Because I am not that person that likes to ask for help. Even my husband now is like, sit down, what can I do? And I'm like, no, I don't want to inconvenience anybody. And he's like, I am here, we're a team, let me help you. But I think for me, the huge part was just my husband listening to me after years of the same things going on. His continued empathy was eventually, and his listening was what gave him the spark of like, hey, you need a purpose. And he was giving me ideas for that purpose. Because at the time, I didn't want to be alive anymore. And if it wasn't for my kids, I probably still wouldn't be here because I was just done. I wasn't even hardly able to take care of myself, nevertheless our kids, because I could hardly even make it out of bed some days. You know, peeing in diapers and having your husband have to wipe you is just not the best. So I thought, gosh, what am I even doing here anymore? So for me, it was having a spark of passion and purpose that was the catalyst that gave me more reason beyond my family that kept me alive.
I bet there were times when you just felt like, boy, I could just really, really understand what Job went through.
Yeah, but then also I don't want to compare myself to that, and there's always people worse, and so there are people that could 10 times what I've gone through, and even just listening to others who I was just listening to a guy, I don't know if you guys have listened to ever, Ed Milet, so good, and he had a guy on his podcast the other day who had been run over by a bus and had gone, he was in the hospital for 5 months and had 47 surgeries, and they didn't think he was going to walk again, and then he ran the Boston Marathon years later, and you're like, what? That's awesome. Like, my story feels like a fraction, but then I also have to realize that I can still share, and it's my story, and it still has weight, and it can still encourage others.
Very
I was
much
gonna
so.
ask, the makeup moment
Yeah.
for you where it just brought tears, like what was it about that brought you to tears, and how did you move forward through that?
Like when I initially started, or
I think you just said like your mom or somebody brought home makeup and you just kind of lost it.
my mother-in-law, she had brought home like a subscription sample makeup bag, and I just remember putting some on and having no idea, because I didn't have any background in makeup. I didn't have any interest. I grew up a tomboy. I was like, let's make stuff with sticks. You know, I was anti-pink. All the things that were the antithesis of girly, and I'm still not super girly. I just enjoy feeling feminine and beautiful. But it was that when I look in the mirror, and I have before and after pictures like on my Instagram. So if you go on there in like the highlights and the about me, it'll show you kind of where I was. But there was a point where I was about almost 30 pounds lighter than I am now, and extremely malnourished, bleeding internally. You know, your facial discoloration is just not good. And to be able to apply a little bit of makeup and be like, oh, my color looks better. I have some color in my cheeks. Like it was just that moment where you feel like your old self and you just weep because you're like, that's how I was, and how do I get back there? And so I think that was the starting point for me. Yeah.
And how have you changed since that moment? How have you grown in your own head?
I feel like that's a whole podcast episode.
I asked the hard
And a
questions.
book.
Yeah, and a book, right? I feel like I just see things with a different set of eyes. Yesterday I was on the treadmill and I'm like, I'm on the treadmill. Yes. You know, I can exercise again. Yeah. And just, I at one point was so sick that I was, you know, most of my issues were GI. And so I had a severe prolapse and was pretty much incontinent. And I couldn't even go to my mailbox and check the mail. And so just being able to like go to the park without with my kids and not have to worry about having an accident or being in extreme pain all day or being able to clean my house. And on the days that I feel so overwhelmed of, oh my gosh, I have so much to do, and I get in that headspace of like, I'm like, oh, but I can do it. Like physically can. And that's
Huge.
the best. Oh yeah, if you don't have your health. Yeah.
And the one thing that I remember hearing is, and I love this. When you feel like you can't see how you can make it through to the next day, just remember that your track record at this point is 100%.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'll wrap things up. We're getting close to the end here, and I want to make sure we talk about next week, what we have coming up. I'm super excited about that. But something that occurred to me as you were sharing that is something that I experienced recently, where I was sharing with somebody something was going on with our family, and their comment was along the lines of like, oh, that must be so rough. And up until that moment, I hadn't even put myself in that situation. It was this surreal, like, oh, that happens to other people.
Yeah.
And I think something that you just did there, and you sort of corrected yourself, but you diminished what you went through. What you went through is, I mean, you talked about some guy that got run over by a bus, and you know, what you went through is huge.
Yeah.
And it's so easy for us to compartmentalize and project that on other people, like, oh, this person's kid has a health issue. This person is, but that was you. And that was the aha moment for me, was like, oh, I'm that guy. I'm that guy that I've always been like, oh, I can't imagine what it would be like to go through that or this. Like, I am that guy. My kid's in the hospital and not doing well. I'm that guy. And that everyone else is like, oh man, that must be so tough. And it is tough, but we don't allow ourselves to say this is tough. I don't like, you know, it's like so I think that for the audience at home and for everybody here, like whatever you're going through, don't diminish that.
Yes.
And whatever wins you're having, whatever celebrate, like don't diminish that. Like that, it's, and Stephen, you said it well, like all of the things that have brought you to today is what makes you who you are. And you're at 100% right now. You're still here. And so well done. Welcome to this moment. Great job.
If people would like to get in touch with you for whatever reason, how do they do that?
Yeah, you can go to my website, annaroseartistry.com. I've redone it 7 times, so let me know if there needs to be any changes. Or the same Anna Rose Artistry on Instagram and Facebook.
And when is your book coming out?
Oh, you know what? I'll let you can be the publisher of this.
All right, we expect a book coming soon.
All right.
I want to pivot to Cherie. Cherie is going to be our guest next week.
Yay!
Cherie, do you want to just give us a quick teaser of what that's? I don't want you to ruin the whole thing because I'm excited about that, but you want to give us a quick tease so that people can tune in next week?
Yeah, so our business is Success Without Sacrifice. That's literally what we do. Our goal is to really help people have all the success that they desire without sacrificing their health or their relationships. I actually just found a stat that the divorce rate is 43%, but for business owners, it's 48%. Significantly higher because we start business and the goal is we want to have success and freedom, and a lot of times we end up sorry. No, you're good. We end up chasing that success so hard that we end up sacrificing something along the way. And so my heart is really to, my goal is to actually impact 1 million business owners and to change this, this belief and this thought that we have to we do have to sacrifice something, but we get to choose what we sacrifice. And so we're really gonna be talking about how rest can actually propel success forward. Because I think there's a lot of fear in rest, especially as business owners who are hustling. And so we're gonna talk about strategic rest and how strategic rest will actually propel your success forward.
I'm gonna need that one.
Man, I know, I'm like, why wait until next week? Let's just start right now.
Show of hands, how many stay up till 1 in the morning working on their projects?
Oh, man, awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
You know,
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Anna, I want to say one thing. The idea of you producing a book is not a crazy idea.
It's not,
And the whole thing is, you have to keep in mind that there is somebody out there
yeah.
that needs to hear your story because what they're going through, your story could pull them through to the next level.
Thank you.
Not to put you on the spot.
No, you know what? 2027.
You're already warming up to it.
We're warming up.
Awesome, good things coming. I will shout out, Brandy McLeod commented, "Hi, my name is Brandy. I am the owner of Just True Pest Control. Your story is awesome. Great job turning sorrow to joy."
Thank you.
And that's the one comment that I saw. I think there's a lot of people. Oh wait, Gay also commented, "Really good talk. All of you will be worth sharing with friends." And then to you specifically, of course, I just clicked something. Loved your story. Thank you for sharing and being you. And like I said, that's what we have here that we saw, but I think that sentiment is shared around this table. Really, thank you for coming in
Yeah.
and sharing your story.
That'll be on replay too, won't it?
It will be on replay. Yeah, we'll have it on YouTube as soon as possible.
Perfect.
All right,
Thank you.
we'll see you guys next week. Mike's not here to tell you to smash the subscribe button, but figure out how to follow this, tell a friend, tune in. We would love to have you down here in person. It's always just a great crowd.
Thank you,
And
everybody.
we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Okay.